Andy Staples, kind enough to join us on loan from The Athletic, covering college football. Andy, any problems with the Final Four?
Not really, because it was going to be Notre Dame or A&M at 4, and you could flip a coin on those two, and I don't think anybody other than the fan bases would have been upset if one or the other had been picked. Notre Dame makes sense. You can make the case, hey, look, they beat a team that's in the playoff. Texas A&M had a really good win against Florida, but they both got blown out by teams that are in the playoff. So, I mean, it was kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I just would like it to be a better system in general. You know, it doesn't need to be 4, should have been 8 all along. And every year they keep, showing us why it should be 8.
But you know what will happen, Andy? You're going to get some of these teams that get in there and they get blown out because they face Alabama or Clemson in the opening round, and then people
that happens now.
I know. I said that. I said Notre Dame gets blown out or A&M gets blown out. We don't have a problem with that. But if Cincinnati goes in there and gets blown out, that's bad for college football.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you had an 8 team, and this is how they would do it, it would be your 5 Power 5 champs get in. Your highest ranked group of 5 champ gets in, and then 2 at-larges. So the games you'd have Oregon at Alabama. Oh, no, by the way, you get the bowls out of there, and you actually play them in campus college football stadiums where they're meant to be played. So you'd have Oregon at Alabama, which people will say, okay, why is Oregon in there? They don't deserve it. Okay, but from a business perspective, you kept that side of the country engaged the entire season. You gave stakes to the Pac-12 championship game, and if Oregon gets blown out, great. That's Alabama getting a reward for earning the number 1 seed. You got Cincy at Clemson. Will Clemson kill Cincy? Maybe, but at least we know. And then you have Oklahoma at Ohio State and Texas A&M at Notre Dame. Who is not watching those games?
I know, I agree, but I don't know
it's crazy.
When do they expand? Because they have the contract with ESPN. Can they break that contract? I guess all contracts are meant to be broken, but we're stuck with this through what, 2023?
2026.
Oh.
And it's the deal with the bowls that's the issue, because ESPN would be fine. ESPN wants to make the conferences happy. If the conferences say we want to do an 18 playoff, ESPN will say, great, we'll pay you for that. Because, they're going to wind up paying about the same amount of money any way you slice it. So they don't care about the packaging. They just care about the product. So if you give them an opportunity to buy the product, they'll buy it. But it's the deal with the bowls, because, you got these middlemen in the bowls that have been for years hijacking the way college football crowns its national champion. They were pretty useful back in the day. They're completely useless now. There is no need for them to be there. If the school, let's say the Rose Bowl, here's a good example, because the Rose Bowl has always kind of been what was in the way. And if you went to the Rose Bowl right now and said, hey, we're going to have a Big Ten and Pac-12 game in your stadium. We're going to kick it off at 2 o'clock Eastern time on January 1st. It's not going to be a playoff game. We're going to play those on campus. We're not going to give you as much money as we did before. ESPN's going to give all that money to the conferences. The Rose Bowl would say, well, no, we don't want to do that. And they'll say, okay, that's great. We're going to move that game to another stadium, and now you can have $0 and enjoy your monster truck pull on January 1st. And the Rose Bowl will be like, okay, we'll take some dollars over $0. That would be wonderful.
And now we have the Rose Bowl in Dallas.
Can we call it the Rose Bowl? I'm not clear on the legality of this. I don't know if I'm going to get a letter from somebody.
I know. It's we got caught up in this eye test, and I still don't know. I don't have great vision, but the eye test with Ohio State, I want them in there in the Final Four, but I can't sit there and go, boy, they passed the eye test. You know who passes the eye test? As strange as this is going to sound, Florida does. If Florida didn't lose to
Florida's
LSU,
offense does.
They went toe-to-toe with Alabama. If you said they were going to play again, I'd say absolutely. I'm all in.
Yeah.
That loss to LSU, I wonder, was there, if they didn't lose to LSU, would there be a chance that Florida was in there instead of Notre Dame?
It would have been the 2018 discussion all over again. And remember in 2018, Alabama and Georgia played the really good SEC championship game where Tua gets hurt, Jalen Hurts comes in. And there was the big argument of, do you put Georgia in at number 4 even though they just lost to Alabama. I think you would have had that same discussion had Florida not lost to LSU. The problem for Florida is, yeah, you just showed you can go toe-to-toe with Alabama, but a week earlier, you just showed you can completely lay an egg. So, I mean, that's the issue with that one. But yeah, that would have been the dominant conversation Sunday morning if Florida hadn't lost to LSU, is should Florida be number 4?
You okay with Ohio State? Just because?
I am. And here's the thing. Everybody's like, well, you got to punish them, punish the Big Ten because they only played 6 games. Yeah, but if you punish the Big Ten by punishing Ohio State, that makes no sense. The Big Ten played at all because Ohio State and Nebraska and Iowa and those people fought to get a season played in the Big Ten. Ohio State would have loved to have played 10 games. Yeah. They were on the side of the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 the entire time. So you can't punish them because their league did something stupid. So I'm fine with it. And look, it was all going to be eye test anyway because we didn't have non-conference games. We didn't remember, we're supposed to get Ohio State, Oregon in week 2. That would have been amazing. It would have been a great data point for us to tell, okay, where's the Pac-10 stack up against the Big Ten? We don't have any idea this year because we didn't have any non-conference games. And so the only thing we can really say is the Sun Belt is better than the Big 12 because the Sun Belt went 3-0 against the Big 12.
Army is not going to a bowl game. Their head coach is going to join us top of the hour. So to explain this to me, that Army, what are they, 8-2, not going to a bowl game?
So basically, they were going to the Independence Bowl, and that was set up. And the Independence Bowl had to cancel its game because it can't get another team into the game. There have been too many opt-outs, and so the Independence Bowl does not have an opponent for them. And all the other bowls, because they're contractually tied to different conferences, had to fill through the different conferences that they're contractually tied to. And it's a great injustice because Army deserves to be there. You know, you've got a 2-win South Carolina playing in a bowl and Army's not playing in a bowl. It's ridiculous. And it's interesting because Army's former commandant is the president of South Carolina. You'd think he'd say, look, out of respect, we're going to stay home and you guys go play in the bowl game. And I, you know, you don't want anybody to have any issues with COVID-19, but if somebody does, and it seems like given the number of teams that are playing in bowls, there's a chance somebody does. Let's throw Army in there if somebody has to back out. Let them play in a bowl game. They've earned it.
Yeah. And that's why I go back to this when people say, oh, you know, these schools that aren't in the Power 5 conferences, you know, they wouldn't be able to go toe-to-toe with these schools that are. And I go, let me take you back to Army on the road against Oklahoma and Kyler Murray and went into overtime. Oh. So it's one game, and maybe there's a blowout, but you tell me Oklahoma came out of that game going, man, we're so much better than Army.
No, and Army took Michigan to the limit the following year. Look, Army's a good team. There's no reason Army shouldn't be in a bowl game. And this is another one of my issues with the bowl system in general. Again, you don't need these middlemen. Like ESPN owns and operates 17 bowls now. You got the Myrtle Beach Bowl coming on later today. Conway, South Carolina on the surf turf at Coastal Carolina. Those bowls have no middlemen. ESPN puts it on, the teams show up, and you're good to go. And that's the way they could do it throughout college football if they wanted to, and just set up the best matchups you can instead of having, well, we got to have Big Ten number 3 versus SEC number 4. Don't do that. If anything, this season taught us that things might be better if you schedule a little more on the fly anyway. I mean, that Coastal Carolina BYU game was set up on 2 days' notice. It was probably the best game of the season. So why not have it where the leagues get together with ESPN and say, we're going to create 39 postseason games. But we're not going to set them up by conference or anything like that. We're just going to match them up for the best possible matchups, the best television matchups, the most deserving teams get the best games. And that's how you do it. And everybody would be fine with that. Viewers would love it. And you don't give money to people who don't do anything.
Andy, you're making way too
ESPN
much
gets
sense.
The product.
Andy, you're making way too much
I know.
You got to stop. You got to stop with this. Because you know what?
It's just
in 365 days, Andy, we're probably having this same conversation.
Oh, 100%. And probably more so and more frustrated because they will have gone back to all of the old ways of doing things. It will be, we must schedule non-conference games 12 years in advance because that is what we do. We must do that. But you don't have to do that. If this year taught us anything, you don't have to do any of the things that you thought you had to do. So think about it. If you're gonna press the reset button, now would be a great time.
It's great to talk to you as always. We appreciate your insights. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you, Andy, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dan.
That's Andy Staples. Andy works for The Athletic.